Hari Om. I'm missing some campers today. Hari Om. Is the microphone okay? Okay, Jai Guru, Jai Ma. Om Mangalam Gurudevaya Devya Matriksha Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindebhyo Sarva Lokaya Mangalam Om Stapakaya Chadharmasya Sarvadharma Sarupini Avatara Varishtaya Ramakrishnaya Mangalam Om Zara Shiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Majamamashmaracharya Prayandam Mande Gurum Paramparam Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Deva Maheshwara Guru Deva Param Brahman Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Om Bhadrakali Namo Nityam Saraswati Namo Namaha Viraviranga Viranda Vijastana Evacha Sri Ganesha Sharada Guru Bhyo Namahari Om Jai Ma. So continuing our discussions on the principles of bhakti, and there's a section in the Katamrita, Sri Ramakrishna Katamrita, that we read parts of it several times, and I want to return to it. It is not only our takeoff point, I think it's the takeoff point. I think a few weeks ago I mentioned that this was the first teaching that Sri Ramakrishna received from Sri Ramakrishna. Right, and I think I mentioned that records of somebody who interviewed the last couple of weeks of his life, asked him what does Sri Ramakrishna teach you, and he mentioned exactly this. So I mean, this has been the essence of his teachings to M, and I've had a version of this section to meditate on continuously. To me, it's like not only the essence of spiritual teachings to M, but I think this is the essence of spiritual teaching. The question the M asked Sri Ramakrishna, this is after his debate, Sri Ramakrishna definitely slaps down his ego, and M gives a few arguments on teaching Sri Ramakrishna about the nature of God, right? And then he gets corrected. Then he asks the first questions humbly. Right. Actually, even in the section it says headmaster, and in parentheses humbly. Right. So this is important. And so the question he asks is, Sir, how can one draw the mind to God? That's ultimately, I think, the question. If we're looking for God, right? Then, if we're looking for God, how to draw the mind to God? So Sri Ramakrishna answers. The first statement is very important, and we haven't really gone to this. We'll go back to this as the series continues. It says one has to always sing the names and glories of God, right? One should always sing God's names and guna and glories, qualities, right? One should always sing the names and glories of God. I think it's very important that in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, it says one should sing God's names and glories. It leaves out, for some reason, always. I mean, without ceasing, right? And that's, I think it mirrors, perhaps purposely, Sri Sri Chaitanya's line in the Shashtakam, the 8 teachings of instruction. It says, chant the name of the Lord and his glories unceasingly. Different words used, but the same idea that God's names and glories should be sung all the time, right? And then that's a really, like, sir, how can one draw the mind to God? One has, Sri Ramakrishna says, one has to always sing the names and glories of God. And then there's a little half sentence that's like, and holy company, right? So and there he uses satsang. He says, and holy company. So sing God's name and glories. Oh, and also holy company. Don't forget holy company. And then he defines, what does it mean to have holy company? From time to time, one has to go to God's devotees or sadhus. So by holy company, satsang is listed 2 categories: the devotees, the bhaktas, and sadhus. Of course, sometime in some texts when mentioned sadhu, sadhu means holy people, monks, nuns, renunciants, that's sadhu. But also, sometimes sadhu means devotees. Right here, Thakur is separating these 2. One should time to time go to the company of devotees, right, and also the company of sadhus as a separated class. Then he gives a reason. I mean, this section, it's just so beautiful. I mean, this is why I'm reading Swami Bhajananda's translation of this section. One has to always sing the names and glories of God and holy company. From time to time, one has to go to God's devotees and sadhus. If the mind stays day and night in the midst of material life, the word here is samsara, and the midst of worldly activities, it will not be drawn to God. That's the simple reason, right? If we're thinking all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all of our spare time, all of our work time, all of our entertainment is always immersed in worldly conversation, worldly activity, in samsara, right? In worldly life, material life, and in the midst of worldly activity, then it cannot be drawn. It won't be drawn to God. I mean, there are cases that people. We hear stories like, look at Prahlad. He was born in a family of demons, surrounded by demons, but he was born looking for God, hungry for God, conscious of God, loving God, right? He was born not just, of course, he was born with extreme devotion, but he was already almost like a siddha, or already a perfected being, at birth, right? So even though he had very bad company, right? How did Prahlad, in that story, I think most of you, maybe you don't know the story of Prahlad. We have to give you a summary story of the story. It's a very important story of this little boy he was born in a kingdom when Hiranyakashipu, one of the great titans of the ancient world, right, great demon, had taken over the 3 worlds, right, and sitting on Indra in the throne of the king of heaven, he became the new king, right, and his son was not being a good demon. Right, only talking about Vishnu and love for Vishnu and love for Narayan, chanting God's names and spreading. And because he was a great devotee, and what did he do? He taught his demon friends about devotion. He said the purpose of life actually is to love God, to chant His names and glories unceasingly. right. So it was very. So he was famous story. He was then tortured by the father and tried to be killed by the father. Eventually saved by the powerful Nadashinga form of Narayan, of half man, half lion. Very important story. But how did Prahlad? He was born and surrounded 24 hours a day in samsara, in material life, in the midst of world material activities. But previously, right, just before birth, in his mother's womb, right, due to a peculiar history, he was raised. His mother took shelter of a sage during her pregnancy, and heard from that sage spiritual teachings, right, and the holy name. So even in the mother's womb, he heard the holy name and he heard spiritual teachings, which means what happened? That means how was he born? Even in the midst of worldly people and worldly activity, was a devotee. He had holy company, right? It says, words and verses, even a moment of company with a devotee can save one's life. Right here, he had 9 months of hearing the holy name, the teachings of a great saint. Right, so Prahlad also is not an example of somebody who 24 hours a day surrounded by material consciousness or material people. being a devotee anyways. No, he still also had it by holy company. You have to have holy company. From time to time, if the mind stays day and night in the midst of material life, in the midst of worldly activities, it will not be drawn to God. From time to time, going into seclusion and thinking of her is very necessary. So now the second teaching seems to be almost opposite of the first teaching. Actually, I mean, the opposite would be, if the first teaching is go to holy company, the second teaching is avoid holy company, or go to evil company. That Thakur is not saying, right? But he is saying to go avoid holy company. Once in a while you need solitude, right? So he says time to time you go, so go search, chant God's names and glories all the time. That's all the time, whether in solitude or in seclusion, right? Right. Then he mentions two different things. Go into in when you're in company, seek out holy company. What type? Bhaktas, devotees, and sadhus, right? And time to time go into seclusion. One has to go into seclusion. Just for a vacation? Sounds nice if I think about it. Right? He says, and thinking of her. Right? The seclusion is not just for relaxation. It's to think of her. Because while we're in, in the midst of material life, in the midst of worldly activities, it's not that easy to think of her. Right? And we all struggle. We give it our best shot, but it's a bit of a losing battle sometimes. Right? But when you're in seclusion, right, then you have there's so many obstacles. The obstacles are internal, not external, right, to be able to think of her, right. From time to time, going in seclusion and thinking of her is very necessary. In the beginning, without seclusion from time to time, keeping the mind on God is very difficult. Underlines, it's very difficult, right. But it doesn't say all the time. It's not telling go run away from the world, live in a cave. I live in a cave. But it's just 10 feet that way. Not much seclusion. Now it's become a shrine, so everybody's going to see Thakur in it. So, right. It's not to run away from the world. It's time to time, so that you can think of her and call on her without obstruction, without distraction. In the beginning, without seclusion from time to time, keeping the mind on God is very difficult. Then he gives a famous example that Sri Ramakrishna uses to illustrate several different points. When a young tree is being looked after, it needs to be fenced on all four sides. Without fencing it, goats and cows will eat it up. Right, so time to think you need to be a little bit protected. So solitude. So actually two things. I'm thinking about this. I've thought about it. He's using this to flush out his previous point. So maybe fencing a little plant in so it doesn't get eaten is solitude, right? It's also holy company. Holy company is also a powerful fence, right? Because hopefully the company you keep is not cows and goats, right? That end up eating. What do they eat? I mean, to extend this metaphor of a little plant, I think we mentioned last week. There's a thing. Image that's given in the Bhakti literature is called the Bhakti Lata, like a creeper, a small plant, a little tiny seed that grows into a little tiny plant, and then slowly, it creeps. It's a gentle, very delicate thing that kind of creeps along the ground and grows on things. Right, that's our bhakti, right? Such a plant are tasty to cows and goats, right? So it's easy to destroy, easy to trample on, easy to chew up. So you need some protection. So good company and solitude is that protection. Then he says, meditate. Where should we? So we go into solitude and time to time. Where should we meditate? Where should that solitude be? It says, meditate in the mind, in a corner, and in a forest. Swamiji is not here. I'll see if I can remember the Bengali. They rhyme. Mone, kone, vone. Or vone or something like this, right? So mone, so they rhyme in Bengali. Or they sounds. Mone means in the mind, kone means in a corner, and vone means in the forest. So I think in the gospel, it says meditate in the mind, in a corner, or in the forest. Three choices, right? But Swami Bhajanananda pointed out that actually it doesn't say or, it says and. So we're being instructed that these are three places we're supposed to meditate, not like choose one of the three, right? So I mean, probably the way how do you make this living is time to time meditate in a corner, right? We do that in our room. Hopefully, we have a little corner we can hide and meditate and chant, right? That's our in our private solitude, corner, closet. Jesus says, "Go into the closet and pray in secret, and the one who sees you, hears you in secret, reward you openly." Right, right. So corner, and then mone in the mind, which means mind. Also, the term mind, mone. We have like the mind and heart. Mind covers in Hindu psychology. My mind means mind and heart. So sometimes I will translate it as mind and heart, right? Because mone sometimes means like that. So it means internally. So you should meditate within oneself, right? So that's also good. And time to time, go into the forest. You have to get away, get out of the city, away from the home. Maybe not all the time, but time to time. Right? And sometimes, going to the forest is not that easy. And I've been staying at Bellermat one time, actually many times, talking to people at the International Guest House, right, over dinner, breakfast table, the breakfast table conversations, right. And usually what brings you here, and then they say, well, it's like, and they, all of them, like all of us, they have busy lives, they're dentists and this, and, whatever their life is. I said, but Sri Ramakrishna said you have to go into solitude. So I came here. Now, Calcutta and Bellarmine is not solitude, right? But it is getting away. And I think it's getting change in atmosphere. Pilgrimage is also a type of solitude. Even when you're in a group of people, you're still alone in a certain sense. So it's interesting. When one person was saying that, I was thinking, well, this isn't solitude. I was being extremely agitated by conversations at the dining room table at the International Guest House. Too many people talk. Yeah, want solitude, and you don't get solitude. Everybody, where are you from? How do you like India? With your health, But I realized that for him, this is solitude, because he's completely away from his family, his job, his responsibilities. Right. This is Calcutta is a forest for him. Right. Because a forest also is not solitude. I mean, I'm very kind. You could maybe spend a lot of time. We have our friends in the forest right now, right? But if you spend time in the forest, you realize how very much not alone you are. But it's a different type of company, right? You're not. So that's good. What did he say? Without fencing, meditate in the mind, in the corner, and in the forest. And always, he keeps adding, and this, and this, and this. He's thinking all these things you need to do, right? And always discriminate between the real and unreal, sat, asat, right? Or another way, sometimes Thakur glosses this differently as being the substantial and insubstantial, right? What you're looking for and what you're not looking for. Try to find not everything is the same. Not everything's bad, but not everything is what you're looking for. So you still have to have that some discrimination, some discernment. And he gives again, God is real, the eternal substance. Everything else is unreal, temporary. Discriminating like this give up temporary things from the mind. He doesn't say, also, these are interesting things. He's not, perhaps talking to a sannyasi may be different instruction, right? But he's talking to a householder. Mm-hmm. And M very much wanted to be a sannyasi. That was his dream, right? And his internal identification was that of a sannyasi. And there's evidence that he was kind of hidden sannyasi. Thakur gave him like a hidden type of sannyas, the type of tantric sannyas. But he told him, no, you have to stay in the world, right, with family and job as an example for householders. So Thakur left him as an example. But so he says, give up temporary things in the mind, right? There's one point, not on these pages, but to me it's like, wow, what a simple, powerful, Thakur said. He says, actually, everyone will have to give up attachment to the world. He says that householders do it mentally. Sannyasis do it mentally and physically. There's no way to be worldly and spiritual. That doesn't work this way, right? But when you can give up attachment in the mind, or you can give it attachment in the mind and physically, right? But the same act has to be there. Unfortunately, it's an unfortunate underlying teaching of Sri Ramakrishna. Headmaster, humbly, Sri Ramakrishna says, Luckily, here I'm beginning to read. This is a 10-year-old translation, and he printed out a new translation. I'm reading the wrong translation. Sorry. I was going. There's a few things. I thought he corrected this. Yeah, but still, it's better. His new translation. His new translation is way better, and he sent it to me this morning, or just 5 minutes before we sat down. It was printed, right? So just for the sake of completeness, I'll read. It's only a few sentences here. Headmaster, humbly, how do we draw the mind, sir? How do we mind to God? Draw the mind to God. Sri Ramaka, you have to always sing God's name in glories and holy company. From time to time, you have to go to God's devotees or to sadhus. If someone lives day and night in the midst of worldliness, in the midst of worldly work, then their mind won't be drawn to God. Actually, here he says he has an explanation point. It won't be drawn to God. Like if you're all the time in worldly company, you won't be drawn to God. I mean, how he says it's important. From time to time, going into solitude and thinking of her is very necessary. In the beginning, it's very difficult to keep the mind on God without being in solitude from time to time. While a tree's still a sapling, you need to put a fence around it. If you don't put up a fence, it's eaten up by goats and cows. Meditate in your mind, in a corner, and in the forest. And always distinguish between the real and the unreal. I thought distinguish rather than discriminate. Right? I thought he had a more sophisticated word for that. Distinguish between the real and the unreal. God alone is real, Sat, that is the eternal reality. Everything else is unreal, Asat, that is temporary. Once you've made a distinction, remove temporary things from the mind. Headmaster, humbly. How should one live in the world? Sri Ramakrishna, do all your work, but keep the mind on God. Right? Wife, son, father, mother, live with all of them and serve them as if they were very much your own, but know in your heart that none of them are yours. And he continues with different examples. But the question is how to draw the mind to God, how to find God, how to love God, how to develop, or you can put it along our topic, how to develop devotion, right? So he says, chant God's name in glories, right? Have holy company, time to time go into solitude, discriminate between the substantial and or discern. What's the word? Yeah. Use a better word, even distinguish between the real and the unreal, right? And once making that distinction, remove the unreal from the mind, not from. Try to get away from the unreal physically. Not that easy. So, we've been in this series. We've been quoting from Sri Ramakrishna, from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and especially from the Narada Bhakti Sutra. So, thinking of this, some verses of the Bhakti Sutra were jumping into my mind. Last week we were doing from Rupa Goswami's 6 things that help develop devotion, right? And one of which was avoiding bad company, worldly company, right? And so it's related to this, and Sri Ramakrishna says, he doesn't mention specifically getting rid of bad company. He says developing good company, or satsang of bhaktas and sadhus, right? Let me see what Thakur says here. So Sri Ramakrishna said that Narada, the bhakti is taught by Narada, is a path for Kali Yuga. So let's see what Narada Muni says. So this is some verse, not verse, these are sutras. Sutras are much tighter than verses. Some of them are only 2 words long, right? Sutras are a thread, right? So from thread number 34. Tasyaha sadhanani gayanti achayaha. Gayanti acharyaha. The acharyas, the great teachers, right, sing gayanti of the means to attain it. So the great saints, the bhakti saints, have sung. I love it. They don't even say it. They sing. They've sung to us, right, the ways to attain bhakti, if that's the goal, how to attain bhakti. Tattu vishaya tyagat sanga tyagat cha. So one attains in sutras, you leave out as much as you can, since the topic of attaining devotion has been, it's not going to be mentioned again. So in parentheses or in what's it, italic or what's it?
Yeah, those.
Parentheses, I get it right? Wow, I got it right. I was certain I didn't have it right. In parentheses, one attains devotion by, that's going to be almost every time, right? Renouncing objects of enjoyment and renouncing attachment. Interesting, that's Thakur says, make a distinction, remove these objects from the mind, right? So how does one attain devotion? By renouncing objects of enjoyment and renouncing attachments. That's one thing, that's one way. Then, Avyavrita Bhajanat. Bhajanat means worship, right? And Vyavrita means unceasing, unbroken, uninterrupted. So another way is by unceasing puja, by worship, continuous worship, right? Loke pi Bhagavat Guna Shravana Kirtanat. Bhagavat Guna Shravana Kirtana. Shravana means to hear. Kirtana means to sing. What? Bhagavat Guna, the glories and qualities of God. Thakur says, sing God's names and glories all the time. So another way is to hearing and chanting about Bhagavan, about God's glorious divine qualities. But it says, loke api. Even, loke means during normal time. Loke means like worldly time. Not worldly, maybe ordinary activities. So you can leave them to after. I can leave it. We'll process it. So hearing and chanting Bhagavan's qualities, that's given, but all the time, even during normal activities. Loka means like normal day-to-day worldly human activities, social activities, right? So Ramakrishna said you can, when you do your work with one hand and hold the God with the other hand, right? Hold the God with one hand and do your work with the other hand, right? And when your work is done, then you hold on to God with both hands, right? So, but when you're doing the work, the loke api, even during normal things or even social interactions, doesn't mean your mind has to be 100%, right? You can keep part of your mind on God, right? Actually, and the best way to keep your mind on God is by Shravanam Kirtanam, by hearing and chanting. You can chant God's name continually, think of God's qualities continually, hear about God's qualities continuously. That can be done anytime, right? There's times, I always tell people, there are times when you have to you have to do your work with the world with both hands. There's certain things where you need to temporarily give full attention to a person who needs full attention or a situation needs full attention, right? But usually within a few minutes, you can go back to, the mind can still dwell on God, even in the midst of worldly or normal, ordinary activities. By hearing and chanting about the Blessed Lord's qualities, even during ordinary activities in life. Actually, this hearing and chanting, we'll get back to those in further discussions when there are a list of course, this is all about lists, right? My talks have been about number 9 will amaze you. It really is. It's a very, this method, of course, we use it in corny, manipulative advertising now, right? But it's been done throughout the scriptures. It's a very handy way of like, the 6 things that destroy devotion, the 6 things that develop devotion, the 4 pillars of Dharma, the four things that must be avoided, those type of things. 5 yamas, 5 niyamas, 10 yamas, 10 niyamas, right? It's a very common thing. But in the called Nava Bhakti Lakshana, the 9 qualities or signs or stages of bhakti, mentioned the Bhagavatam and Padma Purana, another text. It starts with Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, right? Hearing, chanting, and remembering, right? These are everything. There's other things that are developed there, but these have that. It starts with that, right? Hearing, chanting, and remembering, and chanting and remembering. It's very. We haven't really got into the holy name and mantra and divyanama so much. That'll be a topic I think we need to discuss before the series is finished. But in the bhakti tradition, there's a secret. And the secret is that God is absolute, and everything about God is absolute. And sometimes in some traditions that are very abstract intellectual traditions, certain schools of Vedanta like that, it would hold like, oh, like God is so absolute that anything you say about God or think about God, right, or imagine about God is so not God, right? Or it's a close. There's a fire nearby. That's why the helicopter south of us a bit. No, no, we've been watching. It's not. We're not in immediate danger, but there's unfortunate started just around 4. That's why the helicopter is there. Right, where God is God, or Brahman is Brahman, the absolute is absolute, and anything we think of, since it's absolute and thought are limited, anything we think or imagine about God is not God, right? It's a way of thinking of something that's not thinkable, right? Perhaps, right? But this is, in the Bhakti tradition, it starts with a different premise. God's absolute, and therefore God's absolute. So God's name, absolute. God's form, absolute. God's qualities, absolute. Right? When Swami I knew, when Sadhu I knew, he says those who say that God's name and form are material, right, have fallen from the truth. He says God's name and form aren't name and form. Name and form are limited by definition. Name is a name is a designator, and a form is something that literally a form is a demarcated something, you know. He said, no, God's name and form are not name and form. They're God, right? God appearing as if He's name and form, right? So with this idea that when you think of God's name, when you think of God's form, think of her name, think of her form, or her qualities, her gunas, right? It goes into her lila, her play, her activities, her her dham, her realm. There's different things like that. Those are all. It's the same as thinking of. I mean, it is God. It's an incarnation of God, right? As name, as image, like this. So there's a famous verse in Padma Purana. Naham tistami vaikunte yoginam hirayasuva yatra gayanti mad bhakta tatra tishtami narada. Lord Vishnu is saying, Narayana is saying to Narada Muni, who is the one who's speaking our text, right? Naham tishtami vaikunte. I'm not in Vaikunta. Vaikunta is the highest heaven of Narayan. So Narayan is saying, if you want to find me, don't look in Vaikunta. If you somehow or other get to good karma, whatever, you get to Vaikunta, you won't find me, right? So, okay, well, that's all that. These are external religionists, right? They're thinking of going to heaven, something else, somewhere else. Yogis understand that the Lord's within in the consciousness. It says, Yoginam hridayeshuva, nor in the hearts of yogis. Nope, you won't find me in the heart of yogis. Right? It's like, what are our choices? These are our two categories of external and internal religion, right? You have you have exoteric and exoteric, or something like this, right? God's either in heaven or within us. Vishnu is saying, nope, not in heaven and not within. I reside where my devotees glorify my activities. Mad bhakta, yatra gayanti mad bhaktaha. I exist where the devotees are singing or talking about me, right? So there's a hearing and chanting about the Blessed Lord's qualities, even during ordinary activities of life. Narada says, right? Let's see what else it says. Mainly, however, these are we've gotten some good choices here. Let me go back. Great teachers sing of the means to attain bhakti. One attains bhakti by renouncing objects of enjoyment and renouncing attachment. One attains bhakti by hearing and chanting the Blessed Lord's qualities, even during ordinary activities. Right? So, mainly, however, right, those are all good things, right? One develops bhakti by the mercy of great souls. Mukyataha tu mahat kripaya eva bhagavat kripa leshat va. Right? Mukyataha, mainly, primarily, one gets it by mahat kripaya, by the mercy of great souls. And you can see, how do you hear? Lord does not exist in heaven and does not exist in the hearts of yogis. He exists where devotees talk about him, think about her, right? has to be devotees to think about her, right? Devotees are the one that bring God to you, right? It's very hard to hear about God when there's not a devotee around, right? Actually, yeah, we'll say that. Mainly, however, one develops bhakti by the mercy of great souls, by Mahat Kripayevaha, Bhagavat Kripa Lishatva. Oh, and it says, and Bhagavat Kripa Lishatva, and a little mercy of God. Bhagavat. So it's mainly it's God's devotees and a little of God's mercy. So just say, so it does, because we always say, oh, how are you doing? Oh, by God's grace, we're doing great. Right? It's like, it's a little bit of God's grace. But it's actually the grace of devotees. We forget, I mean, think about it. It's like, God's grace is manifested in our lives often in the company through the company of devotees, but as the company of devotees, right? Because they're the famous. I think I quoted a few weeks ago, and I was going to look up the source. The Vedantic verse, Swami Chaitanya quotes it a lot. He said, "Without holy company, if there's no holy company, there'll be no thought of God, no talk of God." Right, because in devotees, talk of God, right? And if you don't talk of God, your delusion will not cease. And if your delusion will not cease, then more of the same. Rebirth of an indeterminate nature. What is it? Then it's birth, death, old age, disease, rebirth of an indeterminate nature. That's that's the partying prize, you know. So it's important, right? You know. So and so there's even a line. There's but there's a Vaishnava song, I remember, from the Guru. I may not remember the line. It's been a long time since I've sang it. But it says that by the mercy of Krishna, one gets Guru. And then by the mercy of Guru, one gets Krishna. Right? So it's like by the mercy of God's mercy comes in the form of by getting great souls and devotees. Here, that song is about Guru. Guru is one type of good company. Right, but it's not the only type of devotee company. Sadhu, Guru, and Bhakta. These are a good company, right? By God's grace, a little God's grace, we get the company of devotees, and by the company of devotees, then we find God. Mahat Sangas, the company of great souls. Tu Dulabhaha, Agamyaha, Amogaha cha. This Mahat Sangha, this company of great souls, it says, but the company of great souls is Dulabhaha. It's actually very difficult to achieve. We're lucky. Maybe we don't feel it's that difficult to achieve because we've achieved it, right? You know, but it's actually very difficult to achieve, right? Not because like lucky people would be here. No, it's not just here, right? But the places like this, companies like this, where Vishnu himself saying that he's not in heaven in the hearts of devotees, he's in these type of company, where people are singing and talking and thinking about God together. Where Jesus says, when two or more are gathered in my name, I am there. Something like that, right? There's a verse like that. Right? It's actually very difficult. And it's difficult to get. So what is it? How do we get it? Well, it's by the grace of God, right? But it's, of course, God's grace. Thakur says God's grace is, the wind of God's grace is flowing everywhere, right? Set the sail to it. But it's causeless. Without a cause, God's grace is everywhere, right? But there are karmic reasons that we can take advantage of it. We can miss it. We can squander it. We can, and so it's so the text saints have said that it's by the good karma or the punya karma, or the there's a term for it, sukriti means auspicious activities, devotional activities done in previous lives, that one gets a company of devotees, right? So I mean, I don't know, I'm not a prophet, I'm not a psychic, I'm not an astrologer, right? So I don't know what your past is. But it must have been, you've done some good in your past. Otherwise, we couldn't have had this conversation. Our Guruji, Swami Omananda, one year on my birthday wrote me a very moving letter. And he also says, I know without looking at your chart, I know you have very good karma. Otherwise, how is it
that in this life you found, and he started mentioning all the benefit of meeting my Guruji, being, it's like taking, living at a temple, like obviously it's by the good, but it's God's grace, but God's grace was on everybody, right? There still has to be a preparedness, right? So the Sukriti, these auspicious activities done over countless lives fructifies, where we either maybe we search for holy company or we get holy company, right? Or we respond properly to holy company, right? So it is, the association of great souls is difficult to achieve, right? So it also says agamya means also difficult to understand, right? Very hard to understand this mystery, right? And amogaha means an infallible, right? It will have an effect, right? So it has an effect if we keep it. It's easy. It's not. It's difficult to get. It can be difficult to keep, right? So to be careful. You can see one conversation, and I always say, like, even in a love relationship, right? From love to I love you to I hate you. Sometimes one conversation, some badly. I mean, it's not just one thing. It's never just one thing, but usually there's usually something that can be pointed to, right? Some moment or some conversation or something where so it's true. So it's hard to get. Any wonderful relationship is hard to get. Even but devotee relationship with devotees is also hard to get. Very hard to understand its mystery, right? But it's infallible. If we keep it, it will have an effect. And what's the effect? In Narada saying that devotion is got by, he says, mostly he says, by company of great souls, right? By the mercy of great souls, right? So that's what the effect is bhakti. The topic is the best way to get, one of the best ways to get bhakti is the company of great souls, and the effect is infallible. So if you have the company of great souls, and we manage it properly, right, we can get bhakti. Let's hope. Here I am. I'm already limiting Hopi. I'm like, but Narada is. I mean, he's a sage, so he's saying it's guaranteed. Yeah. There's a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is one verse that a lot of people know this verse, so I'm not being too esoteric by reciting it, right? That's one common verse that many devotees memorize. It's in Bengali. It also repeats itself a lot, so it's easy, right? Sadhu Sangha. Company of holy. Sadhu means here devotee company, guru company, and sadhu company, right? The holy company. Sadhu Sangha, Sangha. Sarva Shastra Kaya means all scriptures declare. Holy company. Right? Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha Shravan Sarva Siddhi Hoya. My Bengali is very bad. My English is not great either. My Bengali is even worse, right? All the scriptures say, Sadhu Sangha, so all the scriptures say, Lava Matra. Lava Matra means a fraction of a moment. Matra is I think it's like 1/14 to 1/11 of a second, right? That's like a very, I think it's also described as, this is a very scientific description of time. A particle of dust shining in a sunbeam. It's like that, that's like barely, that's a matra, right? A lava matra, a fraction of that, right, of holy company, right? Sarva Siddhi Hoya grants all attainment. Right? It's a big. I mean, this is Chaitanya's statement, right? I don't know. It's from the Chaitanya Charita. I don't know if it's Chaitanya speaking or somebody else speaking. I have to qualify that. But holy company, holy comfort, all the scriptures declare, right? A brief fraction of a moment of holy company, one grants one all attainment, right? All success. And the topic of success here is bhakti, obviously. Because all success, it's like good company, sadhu sangha doesn't really make you do good in the stock market. People come to holy people for all kinds of reasons.
That's true.
I was told there's Buddhist monks in Thailand that are people go to get lottery numbers, right? And like, oh, he gets very good numbers. You need holy company even to win the lottery. This is not what we're talking about here. I cannot vouch for holy company giving good lottery numbers, but I can vouch that it grants devotion. Then Narada continues, labhyate api tat kripaya eva. Labhyate pi tat kripaya kripavyaeva. Topic is company of great souls, right? Is labhyate is obtained. How do we get it? Right. Kripaya eva, only by grace. So we get the grace of great souls, the company of great souls that is infallible, difficult to get, difficult to understand, and infallible in its effect, right? Only by God's grace, by grace. So if you have it, the point is, this is the thing, if you have the company of sadhus and the company of bhaktas, right, it's only by God's grace. I think we have to really appreciate, this is the point, we have to really appreciate that. And I think if we appreciate it, it can clean up, it can correct a lot of struggles in such company. Why is it only by the company of God's grace? It doesn't seem like a big deal, right? Tasmims tadjane beda bhavat, beda bhavat, beda bhavat.
Is this still thread 34?
No, we've been going now on 40. This is now on 41. Yeah, each line is a different.
Yeah.
To the farm. So line 41, right? This is because why? God, the tat here, jane, people here, the devotee or the Mahatma, right? Beda abhavat. Beda means difference. Abhavat means absence. That means there's no difference between God and his devotee. So, of course, devotees don't walk around thinking I'm non-different from God, but there is a mystery to that. For bhaktas, God's devotees are God. We treat him. And if you think just by having this idea, right, of extreme reverence and appreciation of the mystery that is a great soul, that is devotee company. Of course, there's gradation. There's community members in any community, and then there's a great saints and like this and examples, right? So not everybody's equal in a certain sense, but still the idea that God's. I remember I had this experience with our Guruji, Swami Bhajanananda, going to some home programs, and all the kids got into. I don't know if we got into a little auto rickshaw, or it may have been in a horse and buggy, maybe one of our horse and buggy adventures, where and we went to a devotee's home, and as soon as we got there, then that devotee he washed Guruji's feet and then did pranams, and was doing this very worshipful to Guruji and to the sannyasi disciples, and then our ashram's full of young kids, right? And she was also, and I know this is a very senior and worshipable, in my mind, a devotee. And when she comes to the ashram, all the children go and do pranams to her. She's a senior disciple, right? But because we went to her home, she was doing pranams to all the children. And one of the boys, I remember, right, he was like, "Oh, Mataji," inappropriate, right? Naturally out of humility. And then she said, and then she basically quoted not the same point that Bhagavan and Bhaktas are the same. No, he actually said that. I'm remembering that it was in Hindi, so I don't exactly remember, but I remember the point. It was simple Hindi, so I remember the point. Is that the bhakta is Bhagavan's rupa, right? The devotee is God's form, right? God's image, right? So for that, it's like this is Bhagavan's rupa. The devotee is also Bhagavan's rupa. Jiva Goswami writes one in I think in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, I believe, right? That there's different stages of devotion. First, we're trained to think of God in the deity, right? And then we're trained to see God in the devotee, the hearts of the devotees. And then finally, one sees God everywhere, right? God's everywhere now, right? But we can say, oh, I don't go to temples because God's everywhere. That doesn't work. I don't care about devotee because God's everywhere. That doesn't work, right? We're not showing the right symptoms, right? So first you see where God's obvious, and then you know what to look for. So in places like this, God's a little obvious, right? And we know what to look for, and then we begin to see connected to the hearts of the devotees. And then when we get a little bit of practice, and by their grace, then one can see God's actual presence everywhere, including ourselves, right? There was a scene in the life of Sri Ramakrishna where there was an old woman reading the Bhagavat, right, in front of the Krishna temple. In front of this Krishna. And he saw, I may get the story not exactly right, the gist of it, the point is there, but full details I may be mixing in my head a little bit. As we tell the story again and again over the years, I'm careful it gets elaborated or told wrong, right? But basically he said he saw a light go from the image of Krishna to the book, the scripture, the Bhagavat, right? And then also to the old woman who was chanting, right? And so he said, Ma revealed to me in that image, right? Everything was a revelation to him, right? That Bhakta, the Bhagavan, the Lord, Bhakta, the deity, the devotee, and Bhagavat, the scripture, are all the same. And so he said, Bhakta, Bhagavata, Bhakta, Bhagavan. And so he'd walk around, now he turned that into a mantra. Bhagavata, Bhakta, Bhagavan. He told people, repeat after me. Bhagavata, Bhakta, Bhagavan. Everybody repeat. Bhagavata, Bhakta, Bhagavan. Sri Ramakrishna is a unique mantra taught by Sri Ramakrishna. Right, he'd walk around his room and chanting this in the middle of the night. Bhagavata, Bhakta, Bhagavan, Bhagavata, Bhakta, Bhagavan. Right, reminding himself, right, or reveling in the fact that God, the devotee, and the scriptures are the same reality, right? And so that changes how you treat. Of course, is how we. And so the Bhagavad, actually, scriptures are always treated respectfully. We should treat everything respectfully, right? Scriptures are always treated. They're not put on the floor. They're not touched with your feet. There's all these proper things you treat like that. But the Bhagavat is considered. We actually do puja to that. It's put on when you put it on a cloth. And speakers before we, I'm guilty of not doing this properly, because I sometimes speak on the Bhagavat without doing Bhagavat puja. Actually, people do a worship of the book before reading from it, as directly one of the Lord's forms. The Chandi is the same thing. We have the Chandi on the shrine, right? Dakshineshwara. So the Chandi is worshipped. The Devi Mahatmyam. That's also one of the texts that is worshipped like a deity, like a Devi's form. The Devi Mahatmyam or the Chandi. And the Bhagavat's the same way. Bhagavata, Bhakta, Bhagavan. Yeah, so if you're thinking this, I mean, I think how you have to treat every book properly. What to speak of the Bhagavat, right? And so years ago, many years when Haridan and Pranab were first coming to America, remember, what was that? Before we had GPS on our phones, we had the book of maps. What was that called? What is it? The Thomas guide.
Yeah.
So Usha in the back of her car had the Thomas guide. You know what you do? You throw it back, right? And remember, it was on the floor in the back seat. I mean, because you reach back, you don't put it all the way back. You can't reach it or like that. And Haridan picked it up. He says, and he picked it up and says, corrected us. It shouldn't be on the floor. And then he said, no, it's not scripture. It's like he didn't. Obviously, he doesn't know about the Thomas guide. It's just a book of maps. Right? And he goes, no. Any book shouldn't be on the floor. What to speak of the scriptures, right? This is still a valuable book. It's Saraswati's form. It's a divine form, right? Any book should be treated properly, right? What to speak of, so it's true that the devotee is the form of is divine, right? So especially devotees, but everyone's kind of divine, right? Right. So we should treat everybody minimally respectfully. Right, devotees even more carefully. Like we treat all books respectfully. Bhagavatam, it borders on worship. Not borders, it's worship. So the devotees also we can actually worship, not just interaction. Normal interaction shouldn't do 5-item puja to your boss and things every time he walks in the room or something. Yeah, right. You can. There's people who've done it. I'm sure it's quite something, right? If they have the right vision of this, right? But we should have worshipable attitude towards devotees. Tareva sadyatam. Tareva sadyatam. Now here's something where the Narada in a sutra is repeating something twice, verbatim. And it says in the scriptures that for a sutra writer to reduce one syllable unnecessary in a sutra is like the birth of a child. It can be celebrated. It's like that much pleasure, right? It's like, but so when a phrase is repeated unnecessarily, not reduced, right? It's like that means it's really important. No syllable, no grammar, is added unnecessarily, right? Tad eva sadyatam. Tat eva, that only, that what is of that? Holy company, right? Sadyatam, attain or strive for, right? Attain or strive for that alone. Attain for or strive for that alone. That is, so if you want bhakti, Narada is saying, get holy company. Get holy company. It's not easy without it. It may not even be possible without it. Okay. Of course, when we're in solitude, we also need holy company. Right? Who's holy company when you're in solitude? We should be our own holy company. We should be good company. Our problem is like we right? So when we have holy company, what happens in holy company? You think of God, you talk about God, you sing God's name, you encourage each other on the spiritual path, you talk about your struggles in spiritual life. Right? That's what you devotees, I mean, we also do stupid things together too, right? But that's mostly what we're supposed to do, right? Right? It's like, so when you're alone, in your own solitude, you should be your own holy company. Right? And you shouldn't just depend on other people being your holy company. We have to be each other's holy company. Keep conversations spiritual, encouraging, these type of stuff, right? Don't be bad company. Sometimes we're bad company to ourselves. Sometimes we go into solitude to get away from bad company, and we find ourselves in the worst company ever. Sometimes it's like that. And we go to satsang in order to have good company. So hopefully we're part of that good company. We're not the lowest link in that relationship, right? Because then it's like, oh no, everybody should inspire me. Everybody should answer my questions. Everybody should should chant to me. It's like, no, we should also inspire. We should also raise the conversation, be good, be each other's holy company, be ourselves holy company. Okay. Well, I think these are beautiful verses. I'll repeat this little section. Great teachers sing of the means to attain bhakti. One attains devotion by renouncing objects of enjoyment and renouncing attachment, by ceaseless worship, by hearing and chanting about the blessed Lord's qualities, even during ordinary activities of life. Mainly, however, one develops bhakti by the mercy of great souls or by a little grace of Bhagavan. The association of great souls is difficult to achieve, difficult to understand, and infallible. Company of great souls is obtained only by God's grace. This is because God and his devotees are non-different. Attain that alone, or strive only for that, Right? So it's something we think it's actually not like we should try to, Thakur said, the purpose of life is Ishwaralabh, right? To attain God, to get God. It's sometimes translated as God realization. It doesn't say God realization. That's a realization is a foreign idea, right? It's to get God, get directly God. It's more tangible, it's more immediate than to just have some aha moment, a proper understanding, and intellectual euphoria or something like that of getting. No, it's like to get tangibly, somatically get God, right? But that seems really hard, and actually it may be really hard. Seems really hard, right? But to get devotee company is not as hard, right? But it also says it's also hard, right? It comes from past lives, response like that, and by God, a little bit of God's grace. So maybe we have the sukriti from past lives, and maybe we have God's grace. Here we are. This is proof, right? Therefore, we have that, right? And that is infallible, right? If we take advantage of this great opportunity of Holy Company. So, who is this Mahan, this great soul? Who is who is Holy Company? So Thakur said it's bhaktas and sadhus, right? And we can add to that. There's also is our our elders, our gurus. This is very good company, right? And something we always think is like, oh, it's also advanced devotees. There are senior devotees. They're senior devotees, people who've been on the path a long time, right? And there is in Hindu etiquette, we honor time and age, right? Not necessarily age, but we honor age in the body, but also age in the tradition, right? So it's like our senior guru bhais, our brother sister disciples are senior. They may or may not be more advanced, but they're senior. That counts for something. And then there's people who are just more advanced, that they're senior in that way. Senior as in farther along, right? So, but there's also like Thakur says is bhaktas, right? All bhaktas are God. He doesn't say only really advanced bhaktas are God's form, right? It says bhaktas are God's form, right? And most devotees, we don't. They seem. I don't seem that normal. You guys are a little weird too, but right. But they're kind of devotees are kind. Should be kind of normal. They seem like normal people, right? Right. But are they normal people? Right. That's the thing. Is like, what are they thinking about? Right. Two people sitting right next to each other. One's a devotee and one isn't. You can't tell. Sometimes you can put on. I can dress like a devotee, right? But that's usually a bad. I'm required to dress like a devotee. That's kind of my. There's rules about this, right? But also it's like sometimes it's like, oh, there's too many beads. I think I'm beginning to lose. Too many beads. I'm beginning to lose your respect. It's like, I don't know, right? It's like you're trying too hard, right? Because who a devotee is, you can't tell. You can, and that's what we have to sometimes. We should use our discrimination. It's not that we can't judge anything and judge anybody, right? We have to be intelligent and discriminative. The non-negative use of the word discriminative. But we don't really know what's inside people's hearts, right? Inside people's minds, right? And also by devotee company, it's like there's also like in religion in general, including our religion in general, right? There's like believers or members or community members or followers of the same tradition, right? And so those we don't know who they are and what their actual quality is, right? Because of that, we should be very respectful, right? And polite, respectful, helpful with everybody, right? But here, what we mean by when we think of sadhu sangha is not just company of Hindus or Shaktas or Vaishnavas or Christians, whatever our tradition is people who are great lovers of God, right? Not every member of a religion is a great lover of God, right? So it's like we should hunt out. We should be respectful to everybody because we don't know what's in their mind and heart, but we should search for the company of lovers of God, right? And also, if we're spiritual aspirants, sadhakas, we search fellow sadhakas also, right? People on the spiritual path, right? And what happens in their company, in devotee company, we think of God, we talk of God, right? We sing of God, we remind each other, right, of God. There's a verse in the Gita. This is we call it the nutshell verses, the Uttama slokas, the topmost, the essence of the Gita. It's easy to remember. Chapter 10. If you remember 10, you got it. So remember chapter 10, verse 9, 10, 11. Right, so 10, 9, 10, 11. Right, I'm only going to do verse 9. Right. Swami Chaitanya made us memorize these verses. He makes everybody memorize these verses. If you ever ask him, what should I do? Swamiji, what can I do for my... Memorize these three... Matchita madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam kattayantaras chamam nityam tushtanti cha ramanti cha. Matchita madgata prana. The minds of my devotees, their minds are fixed upon me. Krishna is saying, right? God is saying this, like my devotees' minds are fixed upon me. This is the symptom of a devotee. This is what we should be looking for, and who should we try to become? Their minds are fixed upon me. Their life is fixed upon me. They're oriented towards me. Their lives are surrendered to me, right? Bodhayanta parasparaha. Bodhayanta parasparam. They're illuminating each other. Parampara, one another. So devotees constantly are illuminating each other about me. They think of me, their lives are dedicated to me, and they spend time mutually illuminating each other by talking about me. Katyantaraha, speaking about me, right, about me. Nityam, all the time, right? The thoughts of my devotees always dwell in me, their lives are dwelling in me, and they always are talking about me to each other. That's a Krishna's symptom, right? And then he gives a great line. Tushyanti charamanti cha. By doing this all the time, they become tushta means satisfied, right? Ramanti means and blissful, or delighted. Ramanticha, right? There was a funny scene. I remember this scene from my youth. There was a wonderful devotee named Madhusudana Das. Here at the Hari, he's a Bengali devotee. He unfortunately died some years ago in a car accident in Los Angeles, but he was a pujari for many years in Laguna Beach Hare Krishna Temple. And one time, a aggressive preacher character right out of a Saturday Night Live skit, preacher character came in an oversized brown suit, holding a well-worn leather Bible, and he came to the backyard of the temple and he saw Madhusudana Das. He says, "Can we talk about the scriptures?" And Mahamad said, "Well, that'd be very nice, because the thoughts of my devotees dwell in me. They enjoy talking about me, right? So this is great, right? Let me get my scripture." And he went inside, got a Bhagavad Gita, and came out to the backyard, and we were watching from a bit of a distance, like, oh my God, what's happening? I get very nervous with confrontation. I'm not confrontational by personality type, right? And the Christian brother friend began to barely quoted from the text, but he was quoting by mind, not by looking at the text, right? And he was getting angrier and more agitated, right? And you could the tension is like, when you have like religious, fanatical, hate-filled confrontation, it's very stressful, right? And pollutes the whole atmosphere, and we're like, what's going to happen? It's like, how do we end this? We need to get him in trouble. We need to, what do we do? Anyways, this went on for, it seemed like maybe 15 minutes or something. And then the gentleman said, well, are you just going to sit there and not say anything? Like, what's your opinion? What are you adding to this? And so he opened the Bhagavad Gita to this verse. And there, Prabhupada's translation, the thoughts of my devotee dwells in me, right? And their lives are devoted to me, and they derive satisfaction and happiness by enlightening each other about my glories, something like this, right? And he says, you're showing the wrong symptoms, right? You're talking about God and becoming angry, right? You should be becoming happy, right? The sign, these are nice signs of a devotee. By talking about me, you become tushtanti ramanticha, right? Satisfied and blissful, not angry, right? So anyways, it was dissipated, and he left away not happy, right? But anyways, I remember the scene was really the interesting use of this verse. The next verse in these verse 9, 10, 11, which I don't have with me right now, but if I remember it, it says, for that devotee, I connect Bodhi Yogam. I remember the term Bodhi Yogam is there. I connect their minds to me, right? Devotee who thinks of me, devoted to me, and gets happiness and satisfaction talking with other devotees about me, right? I connect their intellect with mine, like that. And then the verse 11, it says, and then I dwelling within, right? Because God dwells within, right? Illuminate their mind by the shining lamp of knowledge, right? That's the illumination. So Swami Chaitanya says, these three verses will tell you what you need to do, and then what God will do for you. That's how he words it. I remember how he words you think of God, right, in this way, right? And he will, that connection will bind our minds to him, and then from within, he will illuminate and free us. Right. So I think we should end. So, attain that alone. Narada repeats twice, right? So we should have, how do we attain that alone? We should try to develop spiritual friends, right? And friends are, spiritual talk, activity, sharing, not just having worldly life and fun with our spiritual friends, right? That's another thing. You can go out drinking with your spiritual friends. Go smoke pot on the beach with your spiritual friends. That's not what's meant, right? But even then, spiritual people going out drinking and smoking pot on the beach, they're probably thinking God, but that's not the best use of holy company. Actually, you're being bad company to each other, right? You should be really good company to each other, not bad company to each other, right? But even the recorder of the Katamrita in the Gospel, he says in the Srimad Darshana and the Apostle and the Evangelist, he says to devotees, they think of God. It's like even like entertainment, lighthearted entertainment is spiritual to them, because you think of God even in the midst of worldly activity or normal activity, right? No problem, right? So that's important, right? To visit holy places and to visit holy people, to visit our guru and gurus. That's Guru Darshan, right? Right, and also there's a thing I've been thinking about this last few weeks. Maybe end a little bit with this. Is how do we get the benefit from holy company, right? Especially sometimes we go to senior people, we go to our gurus, and or just for senior devotees, and I mean this is the way I've done it, right? You go, Guruji, right? It's like this is my problem. What should I do, right? And our Guruji, he's an ocean of compassion. I can't say he's never not answered me. Sometimes he doesn't answer me, but he would, he gives some answer, and that's nice. I mean, I could ask him directly a question, and he gave me, sometimes direct answers. And that's something. I mean, one of the qualities of a guru, of a senior person, that should know the scriptures, and he should be able to answer your questions, right? And clear your doubt. That's an important function. But not hanging out, but like, oh Guruji, what was it like when you first came to Allahabad? All of a sudden, it's like how did you meet Guruji? How did you meet our Guruji for the first time, right? And then you're remembering stories like this, and all of a sudden you get insight by their life, right? And that becomes more reciprocal, right? More, not can't say friend, because I was careful. I never treat Guruji with like a friend, but there was an intimacy like friendship, right? It's like and it allowed, and then I'm seeing how a devotee saw the world, rather than like, this is my problem, what's the answer to this? I mean, I do that. I mean, you have to be able to ask those type of questions too, right? This is a struggle I'm going through, right? Can you speak to it? But that's a lonely position, right? I think with because there's no nourishment in both ways sometimes, right? So I was actually thinking about that the most times when what's sitting amongst devotees, telling stories or talking about our spiritual understandings and realizations, right? And then you learn sometimes from, actually mostly like when I'm quoting our gurus and senior devotees, it's from these conversations that you pull from, right? Not so much, I asked this question, I got this answer. It's like, oh, Guruji, I mean, he told me one time this, or how he struggled with this and how he overcame this and like that. So that's also a beautiful way of deepening our relationship with devotees. There's so much to say about this topic, right? I have one of the things I have in here is Bhakta Sadachar. Bhakta Sadachar means proper behavior amongst devotees. Maybe we can fold that into next week's discussion. How to make the best. There are protocols. The protocols of devotee interactions are designed to maximize the effect, right, and the benefits, and to be careful of some because of what they call aparad, of offense, mistakes that can be done. Because something's so intimate, it's easy. The more like I say, the more intimate your relationship, the easier the easier to be hurt from it, right? And turn relationships sour, right? And so there are we can be guided sometimes by protocols. We can't be artificial, be natural and human about it, but there are some being respectful and how to offer service and friendship and to different types of people and different relationships we have with them. And then when mistakes and offenses or hurts or oversteps are created, what are the retribution? What are the not retribution? Resolutions. What's the resolution? What's the punishment for this? Nothing like that. How do we? Because actually, because in the verse we read last week, verse 4 of Rupa Goswami's Upadeshamrita, we mentioned these 6 symptoms between devotees, between 6 symptoms of love, right? Giving and receiving, telling secrets and asking, enjoying, feeding and being fed, right? These are the 6 symptoms of love. I mentioned very briefly those discussions that last week, right? So this is how to fully benefit from this loving relationship with the one over here that's also in the hearts of all devotees, right? The devotee is the Lord's form. So we have to take full advantage of and be very careful. And so there are protocols of respect and humility and like that. So maybe we can. I think my topic for next week. I'll make sure I feed it into it as my jumping off point. So thank you for your kind attention. Are there any questions or comments? After I told you shouldn't ask questions, you should just hang out.
Sometimes I think because I try to do my job in the morning, and then in the evening, but then you have to do it in the afternoon. You don't have to, the afternoon time. So sometimes I think of what Tucker said, and I just in my van find a parking lot and then close my eyes and I have ma all over my thing. And then I close my eyes and go within. I feel like that's my solitude.
That's your kone. That's your corner.
Because I can't always.
That's the corner.
Get away. This is as foresty as my life gets. It's, around here. So I try to think of it. And then when I go into my patients' homes, I think of that Shiva Gyana Jiva Seva. Maybe I can't specifically think of God, but I can see them as me serving them as God,
Because the thing is, you telling us this helps. Because that she's quoting Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna that the service of the suffering is the service of Shiva. Right, so it's interactions. You can change your attitude towards any of these things, but that only happens in the company of devotees. You learn this in the company of devotees. So that's because it's easy to forget, right? And we meet all kinds of people, right, and have all kinds of reactions, interactions, and some of them are difficult. Some of them are professional, hopefully, but some of them are also difficult. What is the proper way to remember God, right? And but also just the fact that you're trying to remember God in those situations, that's the sign of a devotee, right? There's a point, but is there a question or no?
Trying to follow those four the principles or what he told Am. Just trying to find ways in my own worldly life to try to fit it.
Well, Thakur said so many things. Every time, whatever you're interested in, cover that with God, attach it to God. Right? It's I'm attached to my child, see him as Krishna. It's anything could be. Because it's not like you're just imagining it. You're imagining it, but it's true. Right? It is true. I mean, the Jiva is Shiva. Right? That's the thing. There's a verse in the Parashrama Kalpa Sutra that says, covered with the kleshas, covered with the adjuncts, Jiva is Shiva. Free from the adjuncts, covered by the kleshas, Shiva is Jiva. The infinite God appears like an individual. Freed from the kleshas, Jiva is Shiva. right? So they literally are the same, right? So I mean, there's scriptural, not only your mood towards it and what you've heard, but that it's bona fide in the scriptures.
Because it's extremely, like,
Yeah.
it's satisfying for
Yeah.
me and easy for me to see and
Yeah.
feel her here with you saying
Yeah.
all these,
Yeah.
but like in my life, like
Yeah.
trying to actually put your words into practice and
I'm remembering a talk years ago at the Berkeley Vedanta Center by Revered Swami Bhajanananda, and he always brought something interesting in his discussion. And he said that there's a verse, very famous verse, maybe you know of, attributed to Adi Guru Shankaracharya, that's used as like the main dictum of the Veda school of Vedanta, that Brahman alone is real and the world is unreal, right? Brahma, Satyam, Jagat Mithya, right, is unsubstantial. And in the second part, and the jiva, the individual, is nothing but Brahman, and is Brahman and nothing else. So he says, for 1,000 years, this knowledge, what has that done? Okay, the world is not real, and only Brahman is real, and the jiva is Brahman. So I shall go into the cave, renounce the world, and find Brahman in the individual. Like Swami Vivekananda, he said, Swami Parananda pointed out, Swami Vivekananda has given something unique. He says, oh, jiva is Brahman? Right, so it means I don't need to go into the cave, because I'm surrounded by jivas all the time. I can see Brahman in every jiva, right? It really, it's like all of a sudden, it's like he gave us like, what if I can't go into the cave? What if I'm forced to go to work? Jiva is Brahman, right? You can see jiva as Brahman, Maybe you can try to see jiva as Brahman, right? And remember God, So it's yeah, good. Yes.
One more question.
Yeah.
So, I find a lot of things that I do, at least I'm observing my mind more, is subconscious. Like subconsciously I'll go on Instagram, or subconsciously I'll the drawer snap. Things that we do without even paying attention. So I'm curious how to subconsciously keep my mind on God, keep my mind in this state of worship. So do you
Yeah.
have any like is fasting?
Well, no, you can. All these things. If fasting is helpful, fast. If eating is helpful, eat.
Or fasting technology, is there anything to
Yeah, no, but so. Well, sometimes fasting from Instagram may be good. I don't know if like vegan donuts are the big cause of our problem that we have to fast for them. I think it may be Instagram. That's the thing. But Instagram's also not. Instagram is a problem. It's a manipulative logarithm designed to maximize somebody else's profit with your attention, to sell your attention. So it's problematic in many ways. And this could be broadcast on it shortly. Anyway, but when the point is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, remembrance, right? Hold on to God with one hand, type of thing, right? And so you can, if your goal is to remember God all the time, right? Occasionally you'll notice I haven't been remembering, right? Maybe it's because of you start. Oh, great, Radhanath Swami talk quote, and then over here, it's Krishnadas tune. Right, and then 55 minutes later, I don't even know what I'm looking at. It's way far away from the Radhanath Swami quote and the Krishnadas kirtan, right? So it's like you're like, oh, I forgot again, right? I was made to forget, but I also forgot, right? So when you realize you forgot, remember, right? It's like so. And sometimes it could be a second, sometimes it's months, right? It could be a year. You're like, oh my God, oh yeah. I forgot. Hopefully not, right? But but as soon as you realize, then do something to remember. Do japa, do kirtan, put down the phone, whatever it is. Take a walk. A fast-paced walk with mantra is a good way to clear the mind again. That's my go-to technique as of late. I was reading something, Spinoza, I think. He said, "There's no problem I can't walk away from."
Yeah.
He said. That's a great line. And I keep walking until the problem goes away, and then I come back home. Then I turn around and come back home. Right? Walking just changes my brain chemistry, and then with mantra and breath and things like that. But whatever it takes, when you realize you forgot, just remember again, and then don't feel bad about forgetting, because especially sometimes we're being trained to forget. That's the thing, right? That's the thing where the systems are designed to make us forget, right? Right. And it's Kali Yuga. It's really hard. right? It's really hard, right? We're not, the culture doesn't support. We're trying to create a culture that supports it, but the rest of the culture doesn't, right? And then Krishna says in the Gita that I am the source of both remembrance and forgetfulness, right? So when you forget, it's like, okay, you say, oh, Krishna made me forget. Now he's so then it's like, who do you blame? It's like, oh, I am a horrible person for forgetting. Yeah, it says, I forgot, now I remember. How wonderful it is to remember, right? I think that's better than focusing so much, because even forgetfulness is also caused by God's doing everything. You can do this, not to use that as an excuse. I don't know. It's not. Don't blame me. It's God. God doesn't want me to think of him. No, it's not quite like that, but you know the point. That these are ways to soften everything and encourage remembrance. And even times of forgetfulness can be seen in the spiritual light this way. You know, right? Rather than like complete failure of my spiritual life. It doesn't. Nothing. Right. You know, Krishna says in the Gita also that whatever we never will run, any progress we made will never be lost. Right. We'll pick up something. We'll pick up in another life. We'll pick up Tuesday hopefully next Saturday. It's not fun. Remind it again, or our next breath, or our next thought, or our next sitting. Jai Sri Guru Maharaj Ji ki Jai, Mahamai ki Jai, Samaji Maharaj Ji ki Jai, Ma Dakshineshwari Bhavatarini Dakshina Kali ki Jai. All right. Yeah, that'd be great. Let me move my.
Om Sri Gurubhyo Namah Hari Om Ganadvanavati Gum Vamahe Kavim Kavino Pavasvarasamam Nishradam Brahmanam Brahmana Katana Kummarvitadikataranam Om Sri Manmahaganapataye Namaha Lakshminarayanavyam Namaha Mahishwaravyam Namaha Vanhiranyagarbhavyam Namaha Satsakundaravyam Namaha Shrivatavyo Kurdevatavyo Grandavitavyo Vasivitavyo Sandavitavyo Sarvasarvavyo Devyo Namaha Om Mangalyam Varenyam Vararam Shivam Narayanam Namaskritya Sarvakarmani Kare Mangalam Gurudeva Devi Matriksha Mangalam Mangalam Bhakta Brindevya Sarva Lokaya Mangalam Om Ayam Atpatattam Shriyami Swaha Om Hrim Vijatattam Shriyami Swaha Om Klim Shivatattam Shriyami Swaha Om Ayam Hrim Klim Sarvatattam Shriyami Swaha Vishnu 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 Om Dara Vishnu Gurum Varam Sarapushanti Surajeva Shakshuratasam Om Abhavidra Vitrova Sarvava Sungatopiva Jakripundari Kaksham Sadhaya Vayandra Suchihi Sri Vishnu Sri Vishnu Sri Vishnu Vena Pushyamayim Sri Guravena Pushpe Om Ginachari Kanjilvatabhyo Namayidra Pushpe Om Om Ginachari Kanjilvatabhyo Namana Pushpe Om Aim Sarva Devi Devi Srupaya Sri Ramakrishnaya Namaha Vena Pushpe Mahakala Bhairava Sahita Om Grim Sima Dakshana Kalikai Divye Namaha Om Namit Tasmai, Guruvaya Namit Tasmai, Guruvaya Mastrai, Namit Tasmai Patam Pat, Om Ejana Pushpe, Namit Tasmai, Sukradavaya Namaha. Om Yang Rang Baushata Vangri Iram Panjali Iram Subhaganavijam Om Gring Simadakshanakalagave Amswahiviriyami Namaha Iram Panadram Dakshanakalagai Madhe Majamritam Pariyam Samarpayami Etaparam Gring Simadakshanakalagave Devi Namparadhamani Urjam Om Gring Simadakshanakalagave Devi Namaha Divine Hum Gring 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 Ram Padila Mahakala Vairava Sahita Om Gring Simadakshana Kalagave Sevam Darshayami Namaha Joy Ma Joy Ma Joy Dakshina Kali ki Jai Ma Bhavatari Dakshina Kali ki Jai Bhagavan Ramakrishna Paramahansa Deva ki Jai Jagannatha Sri Sharda Devi ki Jai Acharya Swami Vivekananda Maharaji ki Purnati Rudrakkine Shardam ki Jai Namah Parvati Patte Har Har Narmade Har.
Thank you very much. A huge difference. I'm not scared of it anymore. I remember the time when I was kid.
Om Stapakaya Charamasya Sarvadharma Sarupine Avatara Vadisaya Ramakrishna Om Jananim Sharanam Devi Ramakrishna Vaganu Paraparme Deyo Sri Namami Jiganesha Shadhu Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Kali Om, Kali Om, Kali Om.
Dakshineshwari, Avatari Dakshina Kali Ki.
Om Sarva Mangala Mangaye Shive Sarvata Sadike Sharanye Trambake Gauri Narayani Namaste Srishti Sthiti Vinashanam Shakti Bhuti Sanatani Gunashraye Gunamani Narayani Namaste Agadani Narda Paritram Parayane Sarvasakti Harine Narayani Namaste Jaya 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 Mahamayi Ki Jaya Jaya Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna Dev Ki Jaya Jai Swami Ji Maharaj Ji Ki Jai Jai Ma Dakshineshwari Bhavatarini Dakshina Kali Ki Jai Jai Gurudev. Om